London stands as a shining example of economic success, contributing around $652 billion to the global economy. As one of the wealthiest cities, if London were its own country, it would rank as the 22nd largest economy worldwide, surpassing countries like Sweden and Argentina. This wealth is concentrated not just in London, but in the surrounding southeast of England. This region generates almost half of the UK's GDP, despite representing only a third of the population. If the economic output of London was subtracted from the UK's total, the standard of living across the country would drop by 14%, reducing the nation's economic standing to below Mississippi in the United States. However, London's prosperity is an outlier, as the rest of the UK faces starkly different economic conditions. Over the last decade, much of the UK has seen stagnant, real disposable incomes, meaning that after taxes and benefits, people are barely able to afford more than they could a decade ago. On top of that, the cost of goods and services has surged, making it harder to stretch a paycheck. The productivity of the workforce has stagnated, and housing has become largely unaffordable. The UK also holds the dubious distinction of having the highest homeless population in the developed world. This disconnect between London's wealth and the rest of the nation's struggles points to deeper systemic issues rooted in political choices. The UK, once the pioneer of the Industrial Revolution, now faces a troubling prospect: deindustrialization. Rising prices have outpaced wage growth, and the country's economic woes seem to worsen by the day. For example, housing prices recently jumped by over $2,200 in a single month, though this spike didn't gain significant media attention. This illustrates how economic challenges in the UK are often overlooked in mainstream discussions. The country has experienced a steady decline in real household income since the 2008 financial crisis. While the UK used to be only slightly behind wealthier nations like the United States and Norway, today, British households are far behind, about 20% less prosperous than those in Norway and 16% behind Americans. The country's middle class, once the backbone of economic growth, has seen its living standards erode due to government policies that favored corporate interests over the needs of ordinary people. The decade following the 2008 financial crisis has been described as a lost decade for the UK. Instead of addressing the crisis with investment in social policies or long-term growth initiatives, the UK government implemented austerity measures, borrowing billions to bail out banks but offering no significant relief to the public. Key measures like raising the minimum wage, investing in affordable housing, or reducing inflation were sidelined. In the years before the crisis, the UK saw steady productivity growth. But after the crisis, productivity growth almost flatlined. This stagnation is especially troubling, since increasing productivity is one of the best ways to boost economic output without increasing labor. The UK's failure to reinvest in productivity since the financial crisis has made the country less competitive in the global economy. The aftermath of the Brexit vote added another layer of uncertainty to the UK's already fragile economy. Foreign investment, crucial for economic growth, dropped by 25% from 2016 to 2021, primarily due to fears over the UK's future relationship with the European Union. Just as the UK was grappling with Brexit, the COVID-19 pandemic hit, forcing the government to borrow an additional $280 billion to support businesses and individuals affected by lockdowns. While this was necessary, it added more pressure to the country's already strained finances. The true cost of the pandemic response was masked by the fact that the government borrowed when interest rates were historically low. However, when rates started to climb, the cost of servicing the debt began to increase sharply. This was compounded by the energy crisis triggered by the Ukraine war. As oil and gas prices surged, British households faced massive increases in their heating costs, forcing the government to intervene with substantial subsidies. While this helped ease the immediate financial burden, it also increased the national debt significantly, further straining public finances. With the growing debt, the government has had less room to invest in essential public services like healthcare, education, and housing. As a result, these services have deteriorated over time, leading to a reduction in quality and access for those who rely on them most. The higher cost of living, especially in energy and food prices, has compounded the financial struggles of the average British. At the same time, the UK's labour market has been severely affected. Despite a relatively low official unemployment rate of 4.4%, the UK is actually missing about 11 million people from its workforce. Many of these individuals are classified as economically inactive, meaning they are not currently looking for work, either due to illness, early retirement, or caring responsibilities. This gap has made it difficult for businesses to find workers, forcing them to look elsewhere to fill job vacancies. To make up for the missing workforce, the UK has increasingly relied on immigration. Workers from regions like South Asia and Sub-Saharan Africa have been essential in filling labour gaps in various industries. However, this large influx of immigrants has also contributed to rising social tensions. Many people have expressed concerns about the changing demographics of the UK, and some lawmakers have exploited these fears to rally support for anti-immigration policies. In August 2024, anti-immigration protests and riots broke out in more than 20 towns across the UK, highlighting the deepening divide within the country. While these protests have subsided, the underlying issues, economic decline, increasing debt, and demographic shifts, are more entrenched than ever. The UK is now facing a complex set of challenges that will require significant political and economic reform to overcome. Despite these challenges, London remains a global centre for wealth and innovation. The UK as a whole may be struggling with economic stagnation, rising debt, and social unrest, but London continues to attract investment and talent from around the world. While the road ahead will undoubtedly be tough, history shows that economies can recover from periods of decline. The UK's future will depend on its ability to adapt to new economic realities, address social tensions, and invest in long-term growth strategies that benefit everyone, not just a select few.